I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the sexual abuse and murder of a 13-year-old girl named Madeline Soto, who was told by her mother to sleep alone in a bed with a grown man. Here's the story. 13-year-old Madeline Soto was murdered in February 2024 in Kissimmee, Florida. She was reported missing after failing to show up at school, which sparked a frantic search. 5 days later, her body was found in a remote area of Osceola County. The medical examiner determined she had been strangled. Authorities arrested Stephan Stearns, the boyfriend of Madeline's mother, Jenn Soto. He was charged with first-degree murder, capital sexual battery, and possession of child sexual abuse material. Investigators revealed that Stearns had been allegedly abusing Madeline for years. Stearns is currently awaiting 2 trials, the first for the alleged sexual abuse of Madeline, and a second trial for her murder, where he is facing the death penalty. Madeline's mom, who allowed her daughter to sleep alone with Stearns in his bedroom, has not been charged with anything and is expected to be a crucial witness for prosecutors in both trials. This story tragic on many different levels, but I want to start with one big fact here, right? Her home is in Kissimmee. That's not where she was found. She was found almost 20 miles away from there. Cody Thomas, Court TV field reporter, went there and filed this report.
So we just turned onto Hickory Road, where Madeline Soto's body was found, not to be confused with Old Hickory Road. That's where police and investigators say they did catch Stephan Stearns in that 2010 Lincoln MKZ changing a tire the morning of February 26 when Maddie Soto went missing. But as we look out here on Hickory Road, we see that it's pretty flat. There are some wooded areas to the left, but it's pretty flat, not too hilly. There's some cows out here, some private farmland. It's a little bit residential, not too busy. We've seen 4, 5, maybe 6 cars tops, and we've been on the road maybe about a mile, a little over a mile. And as I'm noticing some of these light posts, there's no sort of security camera type deal going on out here. And again, on either side of the road, it's pretty flat. You know, not many woods except for way back at the tree line, at the wood line off the land away from the road. I don't see much wooded area up towards the asphalt. But that's not to say there isn't some of those areas as we continue on down the road. Now, as we continue on down Hickory Road, we are starting to see a couple more cars. There were 3 that just passed us right there. And actually, as we're coming up down here, I see some cars parked off to the right, or to the left of me, excuse me. And this actually looks like on the right, if you look up to the right of the road, that is it. That's the exact spot where Maddie Soto was found. You can see that memorial. We have some community members out here putting some things together. So, and these trees right here off to my right, that is where Maddie Soto's body was found dead by police. Now, we are actually at that site on Hickory Road where Madeline Soto's body was found. And if you follow me and look down the stretch of this road, there's not much on either side. I know she was found in a wooded area. It's kind of desolate on the left, a little desolate on the right. You could easily view something from the road if you're passing by. But right here behind me is the memorial site, actually where she was found, right in between those trees. And we actually have some community advocate members out here with us, and they tell us that one of them actually has been in contact with the owner of this land right here behind me. And that day, that morning of February 26th, they say that gate was open. They've talked to this owner of this land. The gate was open, and that owner is mourning because now they're having those thoughts. What if the gate was closed? What could I have done different? But ultimately, again, right over here between these trees is where Madeline Soto was found, here on Hickory Road. Now, just across the street here in this area, this little divot off of Hickory Road, is where a witness online describes where he saw Stephan Stearns kneeling down, changing a tire that morning of February 26th when Maddie Soto went missing. Now you can see it's just a little gravel divot A lot of flat land back here, private farmland. Now, police describe the area they saw that flat tire situation on Old Hickory Road. There's an Old Hickory Road and a Hickory Road. Hickory Road, again, across the street where Madeline Soto's body was found. So there could be a little confusion as far as what witnesses may or may not have saw between the two, that is Hickory Road and Old Hickory Road. But one thing we do know, again, right across the street and that tree line behind that memorial over the fence is where Madeline Soto's body was found on March 1st.
So we're talking about private property, a street that, you know, seemingly wide open, where if you're there, people are going to see you. Brings us to the first question in our investigation tonight, and it's about where Madeline was found. Why was Madeline's body left in this location? Why there? Let's bring in our guests who are going to help us with all of this. Joining me, creator and host of the Grizzly True Crime YouTube channel. She has been following this case very closely. Gisela Kay is with us, and forensic death investigator, host of the very popular Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan. Great to see you both. Gisela, what are your thoughts here when we look at this location? Why this location?
What's interesting is that Stephan Stearns doesn't have any connection to this location, but Jenn Soto does. There's a friend who lives 1.6 miles from where Maddie's body was found, just around the corner, 2 minutes. And Lake Lizzie, which was an area where they used to go hiking, is 7.9 miles away, 11 minutes. So I think he was either intending to go to those places, or there's 3 lakes with alligators in them in that area as well. I don't think that was his plan initially.
So, Joseph, I want to put this back up. So, and Cody talked about the initial incident report, talked about someone spotting Stephan Stearns changing his tire. Now, the incident report referenced Old Hickory Tree Road. I think that's a mistake. I think it's just Hickory Tree Road, because that's where Madeline was found, and that's where that little cutout is. And if you look at this map that we have, that was provided by law enforcement, it shows the area. On the left is where her body is found between the trees. On the right, where those 2 markers are, that's where they found some tire fragments. So I'm trying to understand it, and I think Gisela does a good job of explaining what's in this area, right? You've got alligators, you've got water. They had a friend that was close by. They had hiked in that general vicinity. But what are your thoughts about the specific spot where she was left? Why there? And what are your thoughts about this flat tire? I mean, I'm trying to put these pieces together. What are your thoughts?
Well, as far as the flat tire is concerned, Ben, this is something that's done out of convenience for him, I think, to provide cover, perhaps. Because, you know, how many times do we actually pay attention to people that have a flat tire on the side of the road? I think that we'd all like to say that we would be a good Samaritan and stop and help, but you know that ain't the case. And if he's out in that location, perhaps waiting for the right time to divest himself of this precious girl's remains, he would wait till the coast is clear. All he has to do is egress through that fence line and go over into the tree line. And keep in mind, this is kind of a half-hearted attempt to discard her remains. He didn't really memorialize her body in any way, like we see many times where a shallow grave is dug or you know, anything like that. There were just some dead grass and that sort of thing covering her remains. And so I think that this is a matter of convenience for him. And who knows? I mean, let's keep in mind, he's already been driving down the road, in my opinion, with her long having been deceased. We've got the video, you know, from the stoplight cameras and that sort of thing, where she slumped over. So I think that he had just had enough. Maybe he just didn't have what it took to finish the deal. If he was going to go seek out an alligator-infested pond, he just didn't have the wherewithal to do it. So he stops on the side of the road and discards her, like I believe he treated her throughout her entire life, as rubbish.
You know, Gisela, the other thing about it's daytime. None of this is happening at night. This is during the middle, like literally the middle of the day. And as Cody was on that road, what struck me is if anyone was driving by and someone did see him changing a tire and remembered it and noticed it, and that was really crucial in them finding her body.
Yeah, broad daylight. I think he really got a flat tire because they found that old tire in the dumpster because he was dumb enough to go back to that apartment complex and put it in there. So I think him being there in broad daylight, that must have really made him nervous, because the witness said when he drove past, he looked scared. That was the look he described on his face. Like, he looked scared and he was like holding the tire iron, and, you know, I don't know if he'd ever changed a tire in his life. He also did laundry that day, so it was like a big day for him. But to think that he ran across the road as well or drove in there onto private property was high risk.
High risk. What are your thoughts there, Joseph? Do you think he carries her from one side of the road to the other, or do you think he takes the car to the other side of the road?
I think both of them are plausible. However, to physically take this young girl's remains in his arms and walk across the road is, in fact, high risk. He could have slung a Yui at that point in time if he did, in fact, have a flat tire and pull over in that more open area to facilitate the changing of it. Who knows? But he knew, just like with a lot of killers like this, they need to put as much distance between themselves and the body as possible. Now, there's some out there that hold on to remains and bury them on their own property or try to hide them in a familiar location. I mean, an area that is lived in. This might be a site that he has passed by before. He had noticed it. Hey, there's a tree line. I'm going to try to get rid of her here. It's still, I think, too early to tell at this point, but I think much of this might come out at trial, and we'll see what else they have to say about it relative to any statements he may have given up.
Okay, our guests are going to stay with us. We have a lot more to get into in this program. There was more than one crime scene in this case. Coming up next, what is the most important crime scene?
Shoe last seen wearing.
Green hoodie,
Green hoodie,
white Crocs,
white Crocs.
either blue or black pants.
Grieving widow or mastermind behind a murder.
Monica Cimentelli is accused of plotting to kill her husband.
Famed celebrity hairstylist Fabio Cimentelli.
Prosecutors say she and her lover killed Fabio to collect a big life insurance policy.
The defense may say she's a bad woman, but she wouldn't be involved in a murder.
It's a whodunit Hollywood story, but will there be a twist that no one sees?
The Celebrity Stylist Murder Trial. Weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
We have video evidence that shows Stephan Stearns discarding items in a dumpster in that apartment complex in Kissimmee at 7:35 on Monday, February 26. Detectives later recovered Madeline's backpack and her school-issued laptop from that dumpster. At 8:19, we have evidence that shows Stephan Stearns returning to the complex, and Madeline was visible in that vehicle. We believe she was already dead at that time.
This case is complicated. It's not simple. There's a lot of evidence in different places. I want you to take a look at a timeline here, and it gives you some idea of what investigators are dealing with here. You begin February 26, 7:30 a.m. Stephan Stearns is seen on apartment complex camera, as you heard, with the victim slumped over in the passenger seat. So they're in his car. She is slumped over. 9:41 a.m. Stephan Stearns is seen on camera in a parking garage moving Madeline's body from that passenger seat into the trunk of his vehicle. Okay, so they've gone from the apartment into the passenger seat, into the trunk. Then on March 1st at 4:47 p.m., Madeline Soto's body was found where we just showed you. Cody Thomas took us there, near Hickory Tree Road. So you've got a lot of scenes here. You've got the home, you've got the car, you've got where her body is found on the side of the road. it brings us to the next question in our investigations. We get ready for this murder trial. What is the most important crime scene here? Where are you going to get the evidence, the most significant evidence in this case? And what evidence will you find in each of these locations? Joining me, still with us, creator, host of Grizzly True Crime Channel. She's been following the case, Gisela Kay, and forensic death investigator. Body Bags Podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan. Let's start with the home. We've got Jenn's room, Stephan's room, and Madeline's room. Gisela, from your analysis and research, what are some of the things of interest that were located in those various places, and why would you find each of those rooms important?
I think starting with the clothing, because they were able to identify some of the images of the abuse on Stephan's phone with the clothing that he was wearing and clothing that Madeline was wearing. Then her wearing clean white socks when her body was found. Then there's her one crock in Jennifer Soto's bedroom and one in the dumpster. I mean, I think that's quite huge, as well as the crime scene. And then, of course, the bedding, the towels, and everything else that they've documented as well. There must be a lot of evidence in the home.
Now, Joseph Scott Morgan, before we answer the ultimate question here, let's talk about the Lincoln, the car, where she's being transported, allegedly, according to prosecutors. What are your thoughts about what you're going to be able to find, whether it's in the passenger seat in the front or in the trunk of that Lincoln?
Well, let's just take the cab of the vehicle first off. Okay, you would expect to find biological elements of her remains, or of her person rather, on any surfaces in the cab of the car. All right, it could be the dashboard, the door handles, even the gear lever. You know, you never know what she would have touched. Okay, that's an expected location. All right, shedding hair, shedding skin, those sorts of things. And assuming that she had not sustained any kind of trauma that would have produced blood, save that, nothing really surprising in the cab. However, in the trunk, if you find her hair in there or any biological evidence linking back to her, is it reasonable to assume that this child would otherwise have been present in that trunk? Could anything have transferred off of her body to those surfaces in there? Well, you could say, well, yeah, if she had items from the household that were in there, clothing, those sorts of things, perhaps. But the trunk is going to be key here relative to remnant of what has been left behind from her remains.
Gisela, let's talk about what we were just talking about, Hickory Tree Road and where she was found. What were some of the evidence that was recovered there?
So where Maddie was found, she was wearing, as I said, clean white socks, blue jeans, a green hoodie. So that would be important as well. From items from the house, she was covered in vegetation as well. And I mean, no shoes either. So that's interesting too, that the shoes that Stephan said she was wearing, one's in Jennifer Soto's room and one's in the dumpster. Her school bag in the dumpster. So yeah, he tried to minimize the evidence left there, but obviously left her body there in actual plain sight.
So Joseph Scott Morgan, let me ask you, as you look at these three areas, which of the three is the most significant in a murder case in trying to establish a murder?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just like, you know, still to this day that I teach my students at Jack State. Primary scene, secondary scene, tertiary scene. So primary scene is always going to be where the remains are. That's going to be your target area because you're going to be able to recover the most evidence from that location, particularly as it applies to, I hate to say this, but with her remains, if there was some kind of sexual assault that had taken place perhaps that morning, and she was not sufficiently cleaned at that point in time, and they recovered anything, and I mean anything from her, also evidence of trauma on the body, transfer evidence onto those clothes that she had on, all of that's going to be at that location, so you have to handle it very, very carefully. With this case, there's not a lot of tertiary scenes where you find kind of minimal evidence. You think about the book bag and these other items. I'd be very curious when they brought all of this stuff in, if they found any kind of contact trace stuff off of Stearns, particularly biological evidence that could be traced directly back to him. Some people could say, well, he lives in the house, those items are around, you would expect to find it. But what type of evidence did they recover from those particular items is going to be significant as well. But for me, it's always going to come down to the body. It's going to come down to the fact that that body is going to be the biggest piece of evidence that you have in any case like this.
And Gisela, before we run out of time here, as you have gone through all the pages, all of the evidence that's been made public here, is there anything that hasn't been made public that you've noticed? Like maybe there's a redaction where they're not letting us know certain things here that you are very curious about? Or has it been, like it is many times in Florida, very, very transparent?
It has been very transparent. I say become because initially we didn't know how Madeline Soto died, but they eventually revealed that it was by strangulation. So that was a mystery at first. There was a lot of rumor going around, and they did clear that up, a few months later.
Gisela K, Grizzly True Crime on YouTube. Make sure you check it out. Body Bags, Joseph Scott Morgan. Great to see you both on this Friday. Thank you so much. When we come back, who is Stephan Stearns? Really? Who is this guy? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the sexual abuse and murder of 13-year-old Madeline Soto, who had just celebrated her 13th birthday with friends and family when she was taken from this earth. Here's the story. Stephan Stearns was arrested in March of 2024 in connection with the murder of 13-year-old Madeline Soto in Kissimmee, Florida. After Madeline was reported missing, authorities launched an extensive search, ultimately discovering her body in a remote area of Osceola County. The medical examiner determined she had been strangled. Investigators quickly focused on Stearns, the boyfriend of Madeline's mother, Jenn Soto. Evidence revealed that Stearns had been allegedly sexually abusing Madeline for years. He was charged with first-degree murder, capital sexual battery, and possession of child sexual abuse material. Stearns is currently in custody awaiting trial and could face the death penalty if convicted of Madeline's murder. Meanwhile, Madeline's mother has not been charged and is expected to testify against Stearns. So Stephan Stearns was interviewed several times. We've seen some on video. We've heard audio of these interviews as well. But there was one interview which was really like the pinnacle moment in this investigation, when they were talking about his phone and his Google Drive and what sort of images were on there. We know what investigators say they ultimately found. We also know that Stephan Stearns said he did an accidental factory reset of that. But investigators were able to figure out what was on there. But it's interesting in this part of their interview where they're talking about and asking him about, what kind of images would be on there. Take a listen.
What do you think was on the phone?
Text messages. Emails, phone stuff.
Pictures?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of pictures were on there?
Trading card pictures, lightsaber pictures, Disney pictures.
It's interesting. I think it struck me. Right? Obviously, he's not going to say anything about those other pictures, but trading cards and lightsabers and Disney pictures. What's going on here? That brings us to the next question in our investigation, and it's about the defendant. Who is Stephan Stearns? Really? Like, really? Who is this guy? What kind of life was he living? What is going on with Stephan Stearns? Joining me, journalist, researcher, and YouTuber who has taken a deep dive into this story, Gavin Fish is with us, and psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Jenny Lacey. Great to have you both here. Before I ask you any questions, I have to play one more piece of a police interview. This is Jenn Soto's friend describing Stephan Stearns.
Well, we didn't like him.
You didn't like Stephan, or why not?
He was a scumbag.
Oh, yeah.
We knew. But not that he would do that.
Right.
Never. I never had that, you know. But he didn't have a job. Couldn't hold a job. Was proud about painting these stupid little plastic soldiers.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I was just like, I resented that he got, I don't know how he stayed alive. You know, most of us have to work.
Right.
And I resented that. I resented it, right? So that he had the time.
This is interesting to me, Gavin, right? That Jen's friend is describing him. Who's got the time? He's painting little figurines. When he's telling investigators, what's on your phone? Lightsabers are on my phone. From all your research on all this, what's your take on who this guy is, Stephan Stearns?
I think that Stephan Stearns was the kind of person that really just never grew up in any meaningful way. However, I do think that over a lot of years, he was able to masterfully figure out the art of camouflage. This is a man with deep, disturbing desires and tendencies, and he just left little breadcrumbs as to who he was inside, but what he really was a dangerous predator.
Dr. Jenny Lacey, I want to read this to you. This is an email communicating to Dad after he's been arrested. From Stephan Stearns to Chris Stearns, that's his father. I'm still waiting for the books to get into my hands. No clue if they were delivered yet. I would like Congo and The Hobbit to be among the next ones you send, please, and maybe also a book on origami. Dr. Jenny Lacey, what kind of picture are you getting of Stephan Stearns? Lightsabers, little figurines, not working much, gets arrested. Please send me a copy of The Hobbit.
Well, he definitely had what we would call a dichotomous nature with what we know now with being the alleged murderer and also a predator. But when I agree with our colleague here in the sense that he had a frozen emotional state, right? So when we're hearing the recall from her friend, we're looking at the things that he's interested in, right? From an age-appropriate development, it sounds like he probably was frozen at some type of stage from a maturity standpoint. And then learning to be manipulative, to be able to, especially being a predator. Predators have grooming processes, Vinnie, where they target both the parent and the child. So sometimes they can really be helpful and caring, and they can be interested in the child's welfare, so they can have this side that can attract them to the potential partner. So I would say that he probably was used to operating from this double way that he would present himself, which would probably make him attractive to certain types of people who are more vulnerable to predator type behaviors. But we do know, especially with what we know now, that he had a very dark side to him. And from a psychological standpoint, would really want to look at who he was from his childhood and some of the experiences and some of the red flags that some of the people that probably got close to him probably were exposed to.
Yeah. And, his hobbies, wouldn't be a big deal to me if there was like another piece of his life. Like he's in his 30s. Like you're working, you're building a future, you're doing something, right? But take a look. Here's another one of these communications to his father. Now we're at the point where he's been arrested. He's locked up. He knows what he's facing, which is the rest of his life in prison. So what is he talking about? More of his little figurines. As far as notes about my personal property at the house, this is to his father, it was mostly instructions for what to do with my Warhammer 50K miniatures and terrain. As for my Battletech minis or supplies, just leave those alone for now. There's a small gray box with a red handle that is not labeled. It contains a lot of Star Wars Legion minis, and it belongs with all the stuff that is in the blue bag on the closet floor that contains a bunch of other Star Wars Legion and X-Wing stuff. For my trading cards and games, leave them alone for now. As for my Tamagotchi and V-Pet collection, don't do anything with them just yet until we know how things will shake out. A lot of them are rare, expensive, difficult, impossible to replace in the kind of pristine condition they're in. Gavin Fish, this guy is delusional. He's delusional. He doesn't know how it's going to shake out.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that being charged with 60 charges of sexual battery, having been caught with 1,700 photos and videos of Madeline Soto being abused, some 35,000 images of child sexual assault material, he is able to just talk to his parents like, hey, let's talk about my toys here for a second, and can you send me money? He was, for some reason, he's able to just completely ignore everything that he's been caught doing. That this is the ugliest side of humanity. This is the deepest, darkest, most disgusting part of humanity that can even exist, and he's concerned about his Tamagotchi.
My Tamagotchis. Stephan Stern's Facebook page says he worked at Disney World. While it's unclear if that is true or not, some online sleuths believe they tracked down video that appears to show him working at the entrance of Journey into Imagination Traction in Epcot. This video was posted on Travel in 360's YouTube page, and we pulled a still image from the very beginning of the video where you can see a Disney employee who appears to look a lot like Stephan Stearns. Wow, look at that. Then take a listen here to Stephan Stearns' father being interviewed on Hidden True Crime, giving more insight into his childhood.
We're trying to pursue a conversation about an accident Stephan had 30 years ago as the possibility of causing this. Stephan was literally run over by a pickup truck twice. He and a friend were playing in a parking area, and when he was 7 or 8 years old, the guy came out to his truck, a small Toyota pickup truck. Hey guys, how you doing? Gets in the truck and immediately backs over them. Pushes Stephan down into a bit of a hole in the parking lot, drove right over him, and hit him in the head with the bumper as he backed up the first time, and then if that was enough, he pulled forward and ran over him again.
Dr. Janie Lacey, could this be it's not an excuse, but an explanation as to why a man might live his life this way based upon some injury, brain injury as a child?
Well, in and of itself would not explain his behavior, but when we look at certain types of complex trauma, and when people have complex trauma and it has not necessarily been treated, it can lead them potentially to have maladaptive ways of living that are not healthy and that are harmful. But in and of itself, a brain trauma or, an accident that has occurred does not necessarily lead people to harm children or become predators. But we would look at multiple things that potentially could have happened in his life that could have created him to be a predator and to have harm in particular to children. But in and of itself, a traumatic accident like such, I would be curious to look at other things alongside of what has happened in his life. But in and of itself, that would be very rare for any types of case studies or anything that comes to mind that would be similar to this case.
Okay, good news. Guests are staying with us. Still to come. Did Jenn Soto know more?
If I knew anything, I promise you, I would tell you. Like, I am willing to take a lie detector test, whatever the you want, but I don't know anything. He's never mentioned anything. I've never seen any signs. If I I knew anything, I promise you, I would tell you. Like, I am willing to take a lie detector test, whatever the you want, but I don't know anything. He's never mentioned anything. I've never seen any signs. I tried watching her like a hawk. I thought I was doing a good job, but I wasn't. I was oblivious to everything. 4 years?
Minimum. That's just how that far back the cloud goes.
So Jenn Soto saying she was oblivious to this, and meaning the abuse of her daughter Madeline, which was, according to investigators, documented on video, on camera, in the Google Drive of her boyfriend or former boyfriend or on-again, off-again boyfriend, however you want to describe him. Now, she says she was oblivious, but take a look at this letter from Stephan's mom to Stephan while he was in jail early on. We all know it's redacted, but it's Jenn was heavily involved in this, and I am disgusted that she is free and you are not, when this is not all your fault. You need to think about yourself more and her less. She sure isn't thinking of you and how she can help you right now. That whole family is willing to stay quiet and let you take the fall for everything. I think of the craziness Madeline lived through with Jenn's various partners. Not a stable life at all for a child. Love, hugs, and prayers for now, and every day and night, Mom. Every time I talk about this story, whether it's here on the air, on social media, or in the newsroom, it always comes down to one question, and that's the next question in our investigation. Did Jenn Soto know more? Did she know more than what she said? She said she was oblivious to all of this. Could she have been? Was she? Still with us, journalist, researcher, YouTuber, Gavin Fish, and psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Jenny Lacey. Gavin, I have to imagine you talk about this subject a lot, and your followers and viewers talk about this a lot. What are your thoughts when it comes to Jenn Soto, what she knew, what she didn't know, and when she knew or didn't know it?
Yeah, Jennifer Soto to me is an enigma inside a puzzle box wrapped in a riddle. This is a person that I really don't understand. We understand that she had had a mental health crisis long before she met Stephan Stearns. It led to a divorce from her former husband. We know that she was on medication, but each time that I listened to the interviews that she did with police when Madeline was missing, and then later after Madeline's body had been found, she just seemed to care more about Stephan's well-being than her daughter's whereabouts or the fact that she was dead. When she was confronted with photographic evidence of the abuse that Stephan Stearns laid out on Madeline for years and years and years, her questions were, what's going to happen to Stephan? Are you going to press charges? Things like that. It's very puzzling.
It's bizarre, and it gets more bizarre here, Dr. Jenny Lacey. Wait till you hear this. This is, again, from a police interview. This is Jenn Soto speaking to police, talking about her concerns.
I've always told him that my biggest fear is that this would turn into a Woody Allen situation where the stepdaughter or the dad grooms the child and the child then turns 18 and ends up running away with him. I told him like that was my biggest fear and I don't ever want that happening. Like, you can't do that to me. Like,
why would you say that to him?
Because I never trusted. I grew up being told never trust the man. My mom put that in my body. Never trust the man.
Yikes! I was scared of a Woody Allen situation. That she was afraid that Madeline was gonna get groomed and then run away with her man, and in the meantime, she is sending her daughter, Dr. Jenny Lacey, upstairs to be alone with that man in bed all night. Make sense of it. Can you?
You know, there's a few things that I would say, Vinnie, when we look at mothers that, in hindsight, when we look at their awareness, it's usually on some type of spectrum, right? So either she, because of her own history, truly had complete unawareness because of some other factors, you know, as we mentioned, mental health, potentially her own abuses in the past, and having cognitive dissonance. But we're also looking at, because of this statement, I would suspect that she's had some type of, whether it's either subconscious suspicion or partial awareness, for the very fact that perhaps maybe she noticed some red flags but didn't recognize them to the full significance. You know, perhaps she had concerning for some of his behaviors, but psychologically, because of her own mental awareness and challenges, she couldn't defend against acknowledging what was probably happening. So kind of came at him at a different perspective. But we also consider when mothers have their children that were sexually abused under their watch, so to speak, sometimes we'll see some common things, Vinnie, and that's sometimes there's some psychological dependence on the partner, right? So in this case, from an emotional standpoint, where she's able to do what she needs to do, so he's having access to her child while she's being able to have some level of freedom, whether it's work or doing other things, or potentially her own prior trauma history. We know that when women have their own trauma history, it affects their ability to recognize danger because they have poor boundary recognition. Obviously, there were no boundaries in this home, and we can clearly see that for many different reasons, and potentially because of her own developmental history. So there's probably some psychological makeup when we really dig down into who she is that would make some sense in the context of this very, very sad story.
Yeah, really sad for Madeline. And Gavin, I just want to be clear. Like, they went through all these images, and there is no way to link Jenn Soto to any of these images, right? I mean, she's not in the pictures. A third person isn't taking the pictures. So I don't think she's there when any of this is happening, like in the room.
Yeah, from what we have been given so far, and Florida is a very transparent state when it comes to open records and records involving a criminal investigation. They're very open. Everything that we've seen so far does not have Jenn in the photo. It does not seem to be that she has taken the photo. But for me, I always come back to the question, if her daughter had been being abused for 5 years, and over the course of so much time and so many incidents, how is it that she does not know about this? I guess, extending a little extra grace here, it's possible that she didn't know, but she just
it's hard to believe. I think that's where we all end up. We're out of time for now, but it's so great to have you on the show. Gavin Fish, check him out on YouTube, folks. Dr. Janie Lacey, thank you. Jenn Soto is in the middle of this story and the middle of this case. She should know more than any other person except the killer. But it may be tough for a jury to understand how she didn't know what was happening to her daughter. The question is, will that keep them from finding Stephan Stearns guilty? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.